Black Channel, we are entertaining a question. How can the Democrats regain the black vote? We're going to be examining this tonight. We've been waiting here for a while. I've been waiting for a while to do this. Been waiting for a while to do this as we go through year one of the second Reich of Donald J. Trump. And you've seen how events have turned out. This is an article from a couple of weeks ago from the New York Times. This is not some skewed right-wing article. This is not in the middle of a presidential election cycle to gin up viewers or readers. And it's not from some Republican mouthpiece. This is from the New York Times. And they give you the ability to actually listen to the whole article there, but we are not going to do that. You are going to have yours truly to walk you through this. I'm not going to read the whole thing. But there are some key parts in particular that I think are very worth observing. The Democratic Party headline, the Democratic Party faces a voter registration crisis. The word that they use is crisis. The party is bleeding support beyond the ballot box, a new analysis shows. The Democratic Party is hemorrhaging voters long before they even go to the polls. Of the 30 states that track voter registration by political party, Democrats lost ground to Republicans in every single one between the 2020 and 2024 elections, and often by a lot. Let me say that again. The Democrats lost ground to Republicans in every single state, 30 of them, that track voter registration by party. That 4-year swing toward the Republicans adds up to 4.5 million voters, a deep political hole that could take years for Democrats to climb out from. And take a look at this map right here, and it shows you what you're looking at there. You take a look at all these states. It was not so much just that Democrats went down, but Republicans went up. It was not just so much that Democrats went down, Republicans went up. The stampede away from the Democratic Party is occurring in battleground states, the bluest states, and the reddest states too, according to a new analysis of voter registration data by the New York Times. The analysis used voter registration data compiled by L2, a nonpartisan data firm. Is that Professor Scott Galloway? All right, so Professor Scott Galloway is in the mix. One of the smartest people when it comes to this kind of thing. Few measurements reflect the luster of a political party's brand more clearly than the choice by voters to identify with it, whether they register on the clipboard in the supermarket parking lot, at the Department of Motor Vehicles, or in the comfort of their own home. And fewer Americans are choosing to be Democrats. In fact, for the first time since 2018, more new voters nationwide choose to be Republicans than Democrats last year. All told, Democrats lost about 2.1 million registered voters between the 2020 and 2024 elections in the 30 states, along with Washington, D.C., that allow people to register with a political party. In the remaining 20 states, voters do not register with a political party. Republicans gained 2.4 million. There are still more Democrats registered nationwide than Republicans, partly because of big blue states like California. Now, y'all see that there. You see what they say here. there are still more Democrats registered nationwide than Republicans, partly because of big blue states like California allow people to register by party, while red states like Texas do not. But the trajectory is troublesome for Democrats, and there are growing tensions over what to do about it. So, by the way, I did see another poll that said that, more people are identifying as Democrats now. And it's like, well, yeah, because big states like Texas don't allow you to do that. But if Texas did, you'd have more data showing more numbers on that. Democrats went from nearly an 11 percentage point edge over Republicans on Election Day 2020 in those places with partisan registration to just over a 6 percentage point edge in 2024. That swing helps to explain President Trump's success last year when he won the popular vote for the first time, swept the swing states, and roared back to the White House. Quote, "I don't want to say the death cycle of the Democratic Party, but there seems to be no end to this," said Michael Pruser, who tracks voter registration closely as the director of data science for Decision Desk HQ, an election analysis site. Quote, "There is no silver lining or cavalry coming across the hill. This is month after month, year after year. This is not accidental. This is not accidental, and it is not tertiary." The shifts also previewed Democratic weaknesses in 2024. The party saw some of its steepest declines in registration among men and younger voters. The Times analysis found 2 constituencies that swung sharply toward Mr. Trump. All 4 presidential battleground states covered by the Times analysis, Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania, showed significant Democratic erosion. In North Carolina, Republicans erased nearly 95% of the registration advantage that Democrats held in the fall of 2020, according to state records as of this summer. In Nevada, Democrats suffered the steepest percentage point plunge of any state but West Virginia between 2020 and 2024. The share of voters choosing to register with either party went down after the state adopted an automatic voter registration system, but the Democratic decline allowed Republicans to briefly surpass Democrats earlier this year. So you can see what the data is showing you here. Top Democratic strategists say the party's nationwide registration decline is a hidden in plain sight crisis that must be reversed before the 2028 election. They didn't even say 2026. They said before 2028. Consider this. In 2018, Democrats accounted for 34% of new voter registrations nationwide, while Republicans were only 20%. Yet, by 2024, Republicans had overtaken Democrats among new registrants. In 6 years, the GOP's share rose by 9 percentage points. The Democratic share dropped nearly 8 points. I want to stop here to articulate something. There's an old saying in politics and in society: if you're young and don't vote liberal, you don't have a heart. And if you're old and don't vote conservative, you don't have a brain. What you find is that as people get older, they start voting to protect the assets they've gained. That's why there's a big argument right now about states like Florida and Texas talking about they want to eliminate property taxes. That would do outrageous amounts of benefits to the elderly who already own all the assets, who already took all the assets and raped all the assets, and now it would allow them to just live scot-free. Meanwhile, the young people who don't even have a house yet would be required to pick up the freight to pay for the benefits to finance all these old geezers. What I'm saying is that these are Republican states, yeah, but the policies. Remember in 2020, you had a whole bunch of black folk telling me that they wanted us to vote for Biden because of those conservative policies that he was enacting back in the 90s. And as these old timers get older, they are supporting policies that align more with the Republicans. So as Karl Rove triangulated, get them to think like Democrats, but vote like Republicans. You'll have a bunch of old bastards who will be talking like Democrats, or at least thinking like Democrats, and voting like Republicans. So that's what the future holds when you have a population decrease of the young. As you get more people getting older and older, what you're actually going to see is that the Republicans will gain in votes. Maybe not people identifying as Republicans, but people supporting their policies. And that's what this population demographic shift, you see the aging of America, that will actually go very well for Republicans. The young people who, back when their reproductive organs actually did work, voting for abortion and other silliness. And you'll have some old aged out grannies who, and the sexual marketplace never worked out for them very well. So they'll still be talking about that in their old age. But other than that, they're going to vote for lower property taxes. They're going to vote for all these financial benefits for themselves. And you'll see more of them actually voting Republican. You can see this graph right here. The share of voters registering as Democrats has declined. More importantly, the share of registering as Republican has risen from 2018 to now. The Times compiled registration data from L2 and compared it to the state records from across the country to show the scope of the registration decline for Democrats, and interviewed more than 24 party strategists and officials involved in registration efforts. "We fell asleep at the switch," said Maria Cardona, a veteran party strategist and longtime member of the DNC. "But Democrats are divided and flummoxed." Look it up. Democrats are divided and frustrated over what to do. For years, the left has relied on a sprawling network of nonprofits. Now listen up now. Nonprofits which solicit donations from people whose identities they need not disclose to register Black, Latino, and younger voters. Though the groups are technically nonpartisan, the underlying assumption has been that most new voters registering would vote Democratic. Mr. Trump upended that calculation with the inroads he made with working class non-white voters. Quote, "You can't just register a young Latino or a young Black voter and assume that they're going to know that it's Democrats that have the best policies," Ms. Cardona said. Brothers and sisters from around the world, when you started following us here, if you started following us around circa 2012, 2013, and I know many of you were very frustrated, many of you were very aggravated, many of you were very concerned about that. I understand that. I see that. I know what it was that was causing your problems there. It seems like there would be no end in sight. It looked like, what in the world is the point? And I understand that. But I needed you to understand that there was a reason for us to stay consistent. There was a reason for us to stay consistent. And I told you all then that we did not get into this mess overnight. We are not going to get out of this overnight. That is not what's going to happen. So you should not be expecting that. That is not what's going to occur. We're going to have to stay consistent. And that was the thing that I called out here. And I talked about that. And folks who may have gotten very impatient, are, and may not even be here, didn't stick around long enough to see things occur. They didn't stick around long enough for that. And that is why I wanted you all to see that I could just say anything to you. What I say to you might not be true. I mean, because I might be saying it for my own reasons. I told you all, let's monitor the data and see how it works out here. Let's monitor the data and see how it works out here. Now you see, yeah, it might have taken a decade, but how is that leveling out now? How is that leveling out now? You don't have to believe me. Don't believe me, believe the New York Times. Don't believe me, believe the New York Times. They're telling you that the old Obama days are done. Dead and done. That's not what their headline says. They're trying to make the headline seem like, oh, this is a party issue. People, the Barack Obama era is dead. Dead, gone, made in ashes, and buried. You do not have to believe that with me. Listen to the New York Times. They're the ones confirming what I've said all this time now, that, oh yeah, it's absolutely correct. Yeah, it is. Behind the scenes, a fierce fight is underway over how Democrats should address their sagging voter registration numbers and which groups should receive funding to do the work. It's a battle with hundreds of millions of dollars at stake, pitting partisans against philanthropists and some of the Democratic Party's most important constituencies. What? Most important constituencies against each other. Did you pick that up? Wanted to make sure that you got that. I wanted to make sure that you got that. They're letting you know that these are constituencies, i.e. voters, voter groups that they're having issues with. You can take a look at this hand right here and see part of the problem. You can see that hand and see part of the problem there. Tom Bonnier, one of the Democratic Party's leading experts on voter registration trends, spent much of 2024 downplaying the seriousness of his party's registration woes. He has now come around. Quote, "I was wrong," he said in an interview. Clearly, in retrospect, we can say the Democratic Party had dug itself in too deep a hole in the preceding 4 years for the Harris campaign to dig itself out in a few months, added Mr. Bonnier, referring to the 2024 bid by former Vice President Kamala Harris. Folks, just a reminder here. Just a reminder. In 2020, I was telling you all when folks were sitting up, Jason, you look at Trump lost, Biden was winning, Biden won, Trump lost. And you all remember, you can go back in the archive right here on this YouTube channel. You can go back and check it out. after Biden won. I wasn't sitting up here hanging my head. I wasn't making any excuses. I wasn't telling you all it didn't happen. As a matter of fact, I was telling you all that this is good. I said it 4 years ago when right after Biden won. You all remember, you all were here. I said, this is good. What do I got to be worried about? All the pressure is off of us. We ain't got nothing to prove. Biden now has to prove that they are worth the vote. 2020 was not the final returns of the 2020 election. 2024 was going to be the final returns. And you take a look at what happened by the time we got to 2024. The Democrats, in an unprecedented move in American history, pulled their own candidate in the middle of the election cycle. And now your pollsters and your analysts are saying the problems that happened in 2024 can be traced all the way back to 2020. And that what happened in 2020 and after that, they weren't going up and up and up. The clowns watching the elections, they going to keep going up and up and up. And I said, no, they're on their way down and down and down. And now they're conceding. Even the folks who were downplaying the dire peril that they were in 2024 are now saying that we were wrong. Yeah, they were in trouble in 2020 and it only got worse. It only got worse. That's the issue. That's the issue. By the way, if anybody wants to adopt a crackhead, B1 Speech, my mod, y'all can take her with you.
Nigga, please.
By the way, I'm having an adopt a crackhead drive, so one of my mods, B1 Speech, if you want to adopt a crackhead mod, she's available. I'll have paperwork after the program. Grim milestones of Democratic decline have been piling up. Last summer, Bucks County, a competitive Philadelphia suburb, tilted Republican in registration for the first time since 2007, according to state records. In the fall, Mr. Trump became the first Republican presidential candidate to carry the county this century. What? This spring, it was Miami-Dade County in Florida, where the number of active Republican voters in the county zoomed past Democrats just months after Mr. Trump became the first Republican presidential candidate to carry the county in decades. People, Miami-Dade. As recently as November 2020, Democrats outnumbered Republicans there by 200,000. For those of you who don't know how Florida works, Florida is a Republican state, usually except for those large areas. So when returns come in, everybody has to wait to see what happens in Miami-Dade and Orange and Tallahassee and Jacksonville. So folks really, and Tampa, folks kind of got to wait for some of those larger metropolitan areas. Well, they're letting you know what's happening in Miami-Dade. People, we used to say, I was the person who told you all what was going to happen in 2016 when no one was predicting that Trump was going to win. And on my broadcast, I not only predicted he would win, I told you which states he would win, with people yelling up and down that Florida wasn't going to be it. It couldn't be it. Take a look at the Democrats. And I said, of course it's going to be Florida. And now, as you all can see, the man set up shop in Florida and runs the damn thing. And back then, I was talking about the Latinos, not just the Cubans. You got a mix of them down there now. You got Dominicans, you got Puerto Ricans, you got Venezuelans, you got Brazilians, anybody who lives in Miami. You know full well the Colombian chicks is on march. The Colombian chicks are on the march in Miami. That's not a Cuban thing on the yachts, at the plastic surgery clinics, at the clubs. That's a Colombian thing. At the Gucci stores and the Louis stores. That's a Colombian thing. Anybody who been to Miami in the last 4-5 years, you know it's up with the Colombians. It's up with the Colombians. So, yes, the Cubans still run the yard, but you got large numbers of other folk there. But I need to take this further. I need to center this further because that was just the primer. You all are not little babies anymore. I got to give you the whole thing right now. It's not even about them being Latino. It's about them being white.
And deal with it.
Back in the younger days, when y'all were first coming here, I had to give it to you in those terms while reminding you all the while that these are people who identify as white. I've been telling you this now going on 2 decades. These are people who identify as white. So if you're under a misnomer, when you used to use terms like Cuban, you're telling yourself that that's other than white is my point. I'm stopping here to make this distinction because when you all say Cuban, Venezuelan, Colombian, you're still thinking as other than white. And I am telling you that as evidenced by the facts on the ground and the results that you see, I am here to remind you, their ethnicity and ethnic origin might be Latino, but it's white Latino. Their ethnicity is white Latino, white Hispanic, emphasis on the word white. Emphasis on the word white, not the word Latino. These are Spanish-speaking white people. And as they get older, they are voting like aging white people. Is what I'm trying to hammer home here. That when you first came to me, I made those distinctions so that you would understand why the Democrats would not get their support. But I always wanted to center that on, by the way, you do realize they're white, right? You do realize we're talking about white people, right? Well, Jason, they're Spanish speaking. Okay, somebody wake this fella up. When you talk about Florida people, that Cuban thing and the Brazilian thing, bottom line, at this point now, wake up and see that it's rearing its head. These are white people. And you are seeing a white dynamic. When I referred to Governor Ron DeSantis as that faux Latino thing, this is what I was referring to, people. I was referring to this. And now you see the evidence in front of your eyes. Now it's just Ron DeSantis. Can you imagine who's going to come after him? If his wife runs and gets elected, oh man. That's basically going to be 16 years of Ron DeSantis. Basically going to be 16 years of Ron DeSantis. Can you imagine what they'll have constructed by then? Statewide, 1.2 million voter swing flipped Florida into the Republican column by registration, according to the Times analysis of L2's data. North Carolina could be the next battleground state to tip. State records show the Democratic edge there is down to less than 17,000 voters. They were at nearly 400,000 4 years ago.
What?
North Carolina, 4 years ago, The Democrats' edge was 400,000. Now it has dwindled and vaporized down to less than 17,000 people. Y'all know me. I get around. I go from one place to another. I've told y'all about what's happening in Georgia and the Carolinas. I told y'all 4 years ago you can listen to Roland the Bowling Ball Martin and all these other damn idiots. If the reason Democrats don't pay him, I told you all Stacey Abrams was not going to win when she ran the first time, and I told you she was going to lose even worse when she came back the second time. It broke down exactly the way I said, because I drive up and down these places, man. All over Georgia, Valdosta, all over the place. And anybody who gets around there understands. Augusta. Anyone who gets around there understands. You saw that they was already showing you we down for Trump is going this way, while Roland is trying to tell a fellow who wouldn't even leave his damn apartment to go up to Baltimore after the Freddie Gray uprisings is going to try to tell you that he knows what's happening in Georgia. Meanwhile, I'm traveling around Georgia and seeing that. I'm traveling around the Carolinas and seeing that. I'm traveling through North Carolina and seeing the Trump stickers and the elect Donald Trump in 2022. Them people were on a 4-year jihad. They were on a 4-year jihad. And I knew the numbers were falling. Nobody had to give me a statistician. I could see flags. I could see bumper stickers. And the fact, I'm like, these folk is about that life. The same way when we say black empowerment, they were saying re-elect Trump before 2024 even came around. With none of your YouTubers, none of the old dead black media pointing that out. And I pointed this out to you all throughout 2021 and 2022. And now you see, by the way, if you thought that was nothing going on, you better take a look-see. You better take a look-see at what's happening. So Florida flipped. North Carolina could be next. The demographics ain't good. Pennsylvania may be on deck. Damn! So if you think Governor Josh Shapiro is going to be your salvation, by the way, the New York Times is saying, by the way, Pennsylvania may be on deck. Democrats held a registration advantage of 517,310 among active voters there in November 2020, according to state records. But that edge dwindled to 53,303 voters this summer. People, that's a 90% collapse. Do you understand that? In both North Carolina and Pennsylvania, they are showing you a 90% collapse. This is not the numbers are just tilting one way. People, this is a collapse in support. 90%? And yes, I'm going to tell you it's going to keep going. You know why? Because Florida became an old folks retirement state. But North Carolina and Georgia, let me remind you all again, I got to remind you of the demographics, because your other YouTubers and stuff will not give you this kind of analysis. And usually you have to go to some big Ivy League school to have somebody who can understand this. And as you saw earlier, a lot of your analysis are getting it wrong. I told you all about this years ago. All the folk from New York, when I made my second film, Gentrified, if you hadn't seen Gentrified, it explained it to you. All these people who were leaving New York because they couldn't afford to live there. So they started spreading out to other places, all these immigrants from New York, all these domestic immigrants. And in the 80s, you had a bunch of them. They were the snowbirds. They went from New York to Florida. The ones who could really afford it, they had a home in New York and a home in Florida. They were the snowbirds. When it was wintertime, they go to Florida. And when it was summertime, they go up to New York. The television show The Golden Girls was basically based on that. And that's what Miami used to be back then. And you can have all your rappers and stuff trying to make it look like it's young and trendy. But the bottom line is the real money in Florida is in places like West Palm Beach. That's where the real money is. West Palm Beach and Coral Gables and the Keys. And those look nothing like Miami. And that's where the real damn money is. And Winter Haven. Shout out Tiger Woods, Jupiter, Florida. And that's the money done come down there, and everybody wanted a piece of that coastal life. Everybody wanted a piece of that beachfront life. Okay, but so many of them flooded down to Florida that a lot of folk who were unwilling to pay the higher prices, they started spreading up over into Alabama. And then I told y'all, it started from the bottom of the United States, it started filling up like a cup. Florida got full. Then they moved up into Georgia. Georgia has gotten full. Look at Atlanta, busiest airport on the planet. Now those folk are looking for places where their buck goes, they get the biggest bang for their buck and their dollar goes furthest, but they want that beachfront life. So now they started going to places that used to be considered to be at lower rent, used to be considered downscale. So now they're up in South Carolina. So Charleston and Myrtle Beach, and even now up into Wilmington, North Carolina, places that nobody was even thinking about. People, they got Ruth's Chris right there in Wilmington. What? In case you didn't know. In case you didn't know, by the way, my folks in Wilmington know it, but how about the rest of you? So just in case you were wondering what's happening in Wilmington, they stole from us a century ago when they firebombed us out of it. The story they don't tell about Wilmington is what Wilmington looks like today. And anybody who's been down there on the waterfront knows what the hell I'm talking about. Jason, you've been getting around. You damn right. So the folks who can't afford the beachfront properties in Florida anymore, they've been quiet as kept moving on up into these other places that used to be considered less desirable because they're more prone to getting cold. But they were considered less desirable because the temperature is going to get colder a lot more. The folks are like, man, screw it. Let me get that. Florida's already priced out. You got to pay millions down there. Let me get that. Let me get that in the Carolinas. Now you got the developers, anybody who's been to any of the beachfront areas up there and Myrtle Beach and whatnot, y'all have seen what the hell they've done over the last 5 years. Anybody who's been to the beachfront in those areas has seen what they have done in the last 5 years. Okay, and what I'm telling you is that the money is here now. If you are in those places, the money ain't on the way. The money is already there. Charleston, that $1 billion Lowe's, the Cooper. I can't, let me stop calling it Lowe's because you won't find it if you call it that. The Cooper. They're on the waterfront there in Charleston. The Cooper. I've been telling you about that for years now. That monster, I still don't think it's open just yet. When that monster opens, that's a wrap. Nobody comes into town spending $1 billion and nobody else notices. Well, Jason, what are you getting at? What I'm getting at is take a look at Miami on Ocean. Take a look at Myrtle Beach. And in Charleston, yeah, the Cooper is about to just be the first of many. That's what I'm telling you. Gentrified, ethnic cleansing, American style. The Cooper is going to be the first of many. Hilton and others are going to show up ready to drop $2 billion. They're going to want to get in on that action. So, by the way, I keep bringing up Charleston and the Cooper because that will just be the first of many. They're going to places that don't have nearly the population of a Miami and dropping Miami money for development. And in the process, they are going to fundamentally change the demographics. I told y'all when I went down there, when you get off the freeway there in Charleston, they got luxury apartments on either side of the freeway off ramp. Those aren't hotels. Those are apartments on either side of the freeway off ramp. Luxury apartments on either side of the freeway off ramp in Charleston. By definition, this will fundamentally change the demographics and the politics of this place. You can't have a bunch of people paying $3,000 and $4,000 a month to live there, and it doesn't fundamentally change the politics. These people would be first and foremost concerned about protecting their property and their property values. That's my point. And that's what you see in Florida. People who are first and foremost concerned about protecting their property and their property values. And this will fundamentally change the Carolinas. As you can see from the data, we're already well down the road. What you have seen in Florida, you will now see here. As their population gets older, you will see the politics follow suit. And you already are. You need to give me one of those. Much of that change is from party switchers. What did I just tell you? From 2020 through July 2025, nearly twice as many Pennsylvania Democrats switched to become Republicans, 314,000, as the other way around, 161,000, state records show. Quote, anyone who says that these things are not concerning for Democrats is, in my opinion, mostly lying, said Lakshya Jain, a Democratic analyst and co-founder of Split Ticket, a nonpartisan election analysis site. Quote, the act of being a registered Democrat is still psychologically something. The act of switching is a political statement. Then you see this right here, signs of struggle among men, younger voters, and Latinos. Okay, these are folks still whistling past the graveyard because you know what your real problem is. And it's not, there's a racial group that's your real damn problem, but it's not Latinos. This is not the backbone of the Democrat Party. The Democratic Party's diminished appeal to men and younger voters was evident in partisan registration data long before it became apparent to everyone in the 2024 election. Not so long ago, in 2018, Democrats had accounted for 66% of new voters under 45 who registered with one of the two major parties. Yet, by 2024, the Democratic share had plunged to 48%. The Times analysis of L2's data found. In other words, Republicans went from roughly 1/3 of newly registered voters under 45 to a majority in the last 6 years. Let me say that again. Republicans went from roughly 1/3 of newly registered voters under the age of 45 to a majority in the last 6 years. The story is even bleaker for Democrats in some key states. The story's even bleaker in key states. In Nevada, which releases particularly detailed data, Republicans added nearly twice as many voters under 35 to the rolls as Democrats did last year, state records show. The shifts among male voters tell a similar story. Nearly 49% of men newly registering with a major party chose the Democrats in 2020. In 2024, that figure was down to roughly 39%. At the same time, the Democratic edge among women registering to vote has shrunk. The combination inverted a gender gap that in recent years had heavily benefited Democrats. Few states offer partisan registration data by race, but those that do reflect the Democratic Party's fading allure to Latino voters. You mean white voters of Spanish descent?
What?
According to the Times analysis of the L2 data. That should tell you something there. In Florida, a slim 52% majority of new Latino registrants who chose one of the two major parties had aligned with the Democrats in 2020. By last year, the party's share of new Latino voters had collapsed to 33%. Let me say that again. A slim 52% majority of new Latino registrants in Florida who chose one of the two major parties chose Democrat in 2020. But as of last year, the Democrats' share of new Latino voters had collapsed to 33%. 33%. That should tell you something. Democrats fared only slightly better in North Carolina. The party's share of Latino registrants, picking up one of the two major parties, declined from 72% in 2020 to 58% last year. And folks, they are flooding in as many Latinos into the Carolinas as they can. Anybody who's been through there, they're flooding as many of them as they can in the Carolinas, y'all. I'm telling you right now, that is the biggest epicenter that I have seen across this country outside of California and Texas. The biggest influx of illegals that I have witnessed outside of California and Texas is in the Carolinas. They are everywhere. Great, big, huge buses of them traveling all the time. Anybody who's been through Fayetteville, Raleigh, Durham, we talked about that last night. That is the biggest influx of illegals that I have seen outside of California and Texas. The numbers are simply mammoth. I have no problem believing that there are well over 1 million of them. What? I have no doubt whatsoever that there's well over 1 million illegals in each state. There's no doubt in my mind that there are over 1 million illegals in North Carolina and another 1 million in South, at least 1 million per state. The last time I saw this was when I lived in Texas. That was 30 years ago. And I hadn't seen anything like Texas until I saw that. And you don't even have to stay. If you go to a hotel, you're driving around, you can't miss it. You can't miss it. All through the rural areas and stuff, with white folk renting to them. Damn. Oh yeah, by the way, I would be remiss if I didn't say that. With the white folk renting to them. Just saying. Fierce debate over reversing distressing trend. So they're not talking about their black vote because that's just too damn dispiriting. That's just too damn depressing to talk about that. They only want to discuss it. They don't even want to talk about how that's going. Quote, if we were to blindly register non-voters and get them on the rolls, we would be distinctly aiding Trump's quest for a personal dictatorship, Mr. Strauss wrote in the memo, which the Washington Post reported at the time. Mr. Strauss argued that the left needed to target its new voters more surgically because Mr. Trump's support was growing among traditional Democratic constituencies. Registering voters without regard to their political beliefs remained cost-effective for Democrats only with black voters up until now. With other demographic groups, explicitly partisan groups ought to make explicitly partisan arguments in order to actually benefit Democratic campaigns. Now, folks, what this tells you is illegals. That, yeah, they don't have to go through that vetting process with the illegals. That's what they're telling you. With the illegals, they don't have to go through that vetting. They're going to have to be more discriminating because the folks they brought over here that they assume, well, you're white Latino, you'll vote Democrat. What they're telling you is that that's not actually working. Those of us who actually are real citizens, yeah, that's more reliable. These other newcomers they brought in, they're not able to rely on them to vote reliably Democratic. And I warned them of this over a decade ago, remember? I told you all that these Latinos, they're going to vote Democrat just so long as they get their feet up under them. Once they get on their feet, they all become like the Cubans down there in Florida. Or the Mexicans down there in Mexico. Down there in Texas. Quote, it would be naive to call 2024 anything other than a reckoning on the Democratic brand, said Tori Gavito, the president of Way to Win, a progressive donor network, who argued that more spending on nonpartisan registration was misguided. Quote, to solve a brand problem, you need people talking about that brand, and that requires partisan dollars. Let me tell you something here, Mr. Gavito. I don't know what side your bread is buttered on, but I got a couple of suspicions what it may be. The problem is not the problem with the Democrat Party's brand are their policies. The problem with the Democrat Party's brand is its policies. The policies have been anti-black for too damn long. And now that you don't have us stomped the way we used to, everybody else is following our trend. We are the trend makers. We are the trendsetters. And when people saw our lapse in enthusiasm, it has now become contagious. And now everybody else is following suit, just like they do. We are the ones who set and define American culture. Well, our culture has changed. We know, you see all these young folk, particularly the rappers, shamelessly snuggling up to Donald Trump. That sent shockwaves through American culture. That sent shockwaves around the society. It made it okay to do that. For every Cardi B, there was a 50 Cent or somebody else, or Kanye West, willing to snuggle up over there. So you could no longer rely on what you consider to be your dependable Negroes. And that sent the message to the rest of the society that it's a free fire zone. You have permission to kill at will. And now you're seeing all the other groups following the trendsetters. If the most hardcore group of Democrat voters are now beginning to abandon them, that lets everybody else know, last one out, turn off the light. Registering voters is big business and an expensive endeavor. Every new sign-up costs $30 to $80. One official involved in registering voters said, the memo from Mr. Strauss, who declined to comment, estimated that netting extra Democratic votes by registering black voters cost $575 per vote in 2020.
Damn!
Let me say that again. The memo estimated that netting extra Democratic votes by registering black voters cost $575 per vote in 2020. In other words, getting what the New York Times, you all see how far I had to read in here to get that. So even the New York Times, as I said, is still whistling past the graveyard. They don't want to be honest about what the situation actually is. The black vote is not there for you. You have been losing it. You've been losing it, and you've had to work harder and do more than you've ever had to do to get that vote. This is the result of the previous 15 years since Barack Obama. This is the result of that. 15, 17 years since Barack Obama. This is the result of that. This is the result of it. For those of you who were here with me a decade ago and you were wondering, Jason, how long it gonna be? And I'm saying, keep walking. How long is it gonna be? Keep marching. This is a marathon, not a sprint. And you woke up one day and they're telling you this is going into full-scale collapse. And if Josh Shapiro attempts to come out as the Messiah, he's going to have to take responsibility for this. Either that or he's going to have to run as Trump light. And I'm just telling you right now, that will be a loser if you're stuck having to run as Trump light. Hector Sanchez Barba, the president and chief executive of Mi Familia Vota, a nonpartisan group that registers Latino voters, said it would be, quote, a major mistake if progressive donors cut off organizations like his. So you see there's still a bunch of folks coming up to the slop trough. Still a bunch of folks still coming up to the slop trough. Hey, where's my dime? Where's mine? He said that it was the job of Democratic leaders to sell Latinos on the Democratic Party, and that would be short-sighted to invest expecting only short-term gains. J.B. Porsche, who heads the leading super PAC aligned with Senate Democrats and an affiliated nonprofit, called the shrinking Democratic registration margins a distressing trend. In recent years, he said it has been lonely out there for his organization's nonprofit arm, which is an advocacy group rather than a charity, when trying to lift registrations, especially in conservative states that Democrats must win to have any chance at a majority. Mr. Porch called the debate between spending money to persuade or register new voters a false choice. If we're, quote, if we're going to win, if we're going to be competitive, we need to be investing in both, he said. Any hope that the drift away from the Democratic Party would end organically with Mr. Trump's election has been dashed by the limited data so far in 2025. There are now roughly 160,000 fewer registered Democrats than on Election Day 2024, according to L2's data, and 200,000 more Republicans. It's going to get worse, Mr. Pruser of Decision Desk HQ said of the outlook for Democrats. It's going to get worse before it gets better. Thank you all for sitting with me while I review that article for you here. This was not an article written by Jason Black. This is not an article written by the Black Channel. This is not an article written by the New Black Media. This is from the New York Times, confirming every syllable that I have said now over the course of the last 15 years. They're telling you that the dam has broken. They're telling you that their bag has turned into a net and trying to catch water, and it's just coming out from every single point you can name with no real end in sight. The buffer class strategy is not working. The buffer class strategy, as I predicted, is not working. I predicted that the white Latinos would begin voting like Anglos. The New York Times and no less than Professor Scott Galloway and L2 are confirming that is correct. Exactly what I said a decade and a half ago. It's coming to pass. In all the states where Joe Biden thought he was being slick, flying in every illegal that he could, and lo and behold, here it goes. Lo and behold, here it is. So I ask a simple question tonight, and I'm going to open up the phone lines here and the Zoom lines here in just a moment. I am asking a simple question here tonight. These other folks out here cannot legitimately ask because they do not speak for the black swing vote, and they do not speak for the black grassroots, and they do not speak for the black youth. 5 years ago, Roland Butterball Martin was sitting up bragging. You all remember he was bragging that the Democrats didn't have to do a damn thing. For the young folk talking about you gonna vote for the couch and you ain't gonna vote Democrat. Joe Biden don't need you. He just needs the 60 and older vote. That's all he needs. You all remember when Roland proudly cranked that one out. They don't need no young voters. And so Roland Martin, in his desperate pursuit of payday loan cash, has been appealing to the Tom Joyner Morning Cruise crowd that can't even walk straight into the Essence Festival. Damn! Meanwhile, here in the New Black Media, we have remained focused like a laser beam on the young. We talk to the youth. And the youth, that's become your swing vote. But more importantly, the youth are your future. Whatever they're doing, that's where you will be in 10, 20 years. And it's coming to pass. So you see, if you support Roland Martin, it doesn't help you because you're preaching to the choir. Roland Martin is not talking to any new voters, any young voters, any swing voters. He is the galvanize the Democrat vote platform. He is not the talk to the swing vote platform. We are the youth and swing vote platform here. We have no firm allegiance or allegiance whatsoever to any political party, and certainly any political disposition, just our interests. He can't talk to that. And when he shows up now, he gets booed out of the room. They should have rotten fruit to throw at him. And he can't speak to them. So I ask you all, how can Democrats regain the black vote? They are currently in the midst of a voter registration crisis. It is an apocalypse. They're telling themselves that eventually they will develop a savior. And I'm saying, by the way, the folks who are trying to position themselves to that right now, it ain't going to work. Kamala Harris thought she might have a chance. She looked around for a minute and decided, oh, that ain't going to work. Gavin Newsom, who is telling himself that he's prepping the ground and he's preparing the ground, that he will step through and prove that he can be the anti-Trump. And meanwhile, all of us are like, by the way, hey, Gavin, we remember you on reparations in California. We remember you on that. If you thought you were going to buy us off with Bruce's Beach, you got another damn thing coming. So, Gavin, we can't wait for you to start making your public appearances so that we can all remind you why we don't like you. So we can all just remind you why we don't like you. If Gavin's the best they got, they might as well go ahead and do J.D. Vance's inauguration today. Let's just go ahead and get it over with and save ourselves all the crazy political ads and the taxpayer money. Let's just go ahead and do that now. Let's just go ahead and do it now and get the hell out the way so we can watch some TV or something. Well, the Democrats are in full panic mode, people. The Democrats are in full panic mode. They don't know what to do. They're trying to figure out, how do we keep the status quo? And you're in a situation where that doesn't work. And let me explain to you here exactly why that is. You see, among the Republicans, people who are talking about voting Republican, they're looking at people who are choosing between voting for the traditional Republican Party base or choosing MAGA Republicans or extremist Republicans. With the Democrats, they're choosing between voting for the Democrats or voting for some other party. There are no Republicans talking about, let me go vote Democrat. And that guy, Mamdani up there in New York, that's the biggest indicator of that so far. That's not a win for Democrats, people. Mamdani is very clearly not a win for them. They can't stand him, because he represents defectors. It's a whole lot easier to go from socialist to something else. He represents straight defectors from the Democrat Party. And the fact that it looks like he's going to win, that is a nightmare. Because you can imagine this spilling over to New Jersey. Remember, Bernie Sanders is from Vermont. California is ripe for that kind of thing. So you are looking at a political apocalypse of this kind of thing if it catches on. However, you might disagree. Therefore, we're going to go ahead and pin the link to the Zoom at the top of the chat room. If you've been instructed by my mods to call in, congratulations. Hurry, step right up. Go ahead and click the link, sit back, smile, and dial. And you will have the ability here to go ahead and speak to the host directly. As a matter of fact, it's not just a suggestion, that is an order. For you to do so, that is an order there if you've been instructed to do so. So, we're looking forward to see you there. In the meantime, I want to thank everyone who has contributed to tonight's program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo. Shout out here to Nancy King. Thank you very much for your support tonight, sister. We appreciate that. YGLTB1. Thank you very much for your support here as well. We appreciate that. Ray the King, Denise Bowler, and Black to Death for giving out some memberships. The gift that keeps on giving. We appreciate that as always. Mr. Richburg. My man Keenan, thank you very much for your support here too. Mr. Fremont and everybody else here, thank you very much for your support. We're going to take a very brief non-commercial break. When I come back, I want to hear from all of you when I come back here. What do the Democrats need to do to regain the black vote, since the black vote is now becoming contagious? The black vote refusing to support them has now become contagious, as I said it would. What do they need to do? What do they need to do to regain the black vote and have a chance of saving their party? We're going to find out from you when we come back. This is the Black Channel.
Be the teacher, knowledge on the block. Got the kids learning, minds open like a lock. Books and skills from the east to the west. Bringing education, yeah, we're simply the best. Classes on fire, brains burning with desire. Innovation driving like a tire through the mire. Math, science, history, we got the whole range. Kids hitting new heights, teachers making a change. Used to be the teacher, stacking up the grades. Future bright shining, no need for no shades. Got the youth thriving, moving up the ladder. Smart and sharp, brains growing fatter. Lessons so lit, yeah, they stay ablaze. Every mind sharp like a sword in the haze. Mr. B in the house breaking knowledge chains. Education kingpin, we ripping the games. Used to be the teacher.
Order yours today to experience all the benefits of Ash Kickin' Body Butter. With skin so smooth and soft, you'll thank us for it. Shop Ash Kickin' online. That's ASHKICKIN.com.
Hi, this is Brenda Starr, creator of Poetry with a Purpose and author of the book Pressed But Not Crushed. Pressed But Not Crushed is an anthology of political poems that address current and historical issues in American descendants of slave population and African American population. The book describes slaveries and its residuals, Jim Crow segregation, social depredation, and other relevant issues to American descendants of slaves and African Americans, including the current political climate that does not address our issues.
This is the Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. Very glad to be with you all here this evening. And the link to the Zoom is now open. We're asking a simple question here tonight in light of the last 8 months of the Trump regime and the fact that the Democrats are in a out of control death spiral here. They want to reverse their fortunes. They're trying to cherry pick a race here and a race there. And it's like, dude, y'all, are you losing nationally in this regard? If you think the Republicans are not going to regroup, you got a damn thing coming to you. And what about that black vote that you have unceremoniously lost across the board here? Do you have any clue how you're going to regain that? So we're asking you all a question here tonight. How can the Democrats regain the black vote? Now, I do say in advance, please don't give us a college thesis about it. Give us the Reader's Digest version. But we're asking you. You can see how bad things are going for the Democrats. How can they regain the black vote? What do they need to do? In your mind, in your opinion, what do they need to do in order to get that back there again? Okay, we're over here on Zoom. Agnes, did you call in last night?
Yes, I did.
Okay, ma'am. One call per weekend, remember? Thank you very much. We appreciate that. Let me go ahead and get Elijah. Let me go ahead and get Elijah up here on Zoom right quick. All right, brother Elijah, what's on your mind? Okay, he's on a train somewhere.
Oh. I'm sorry, you see me? You hear me now?
Yes, brother Elijah, what's on your mind?
I'm sorry about brother. All right, excuse me. I'm sorry about that, big brother. Hey, brother, I got a comment, and I got thing with this whole Democrat. My comment is, I was listening, And everything you was reading, not one of it was about what they can do for their black base. And you asked a good question: what can they do to regain the black vote? But for me, the answer is a first question. I think they don't want to do anything for us. And like everything, they can't stand much longer than not getting support. And do you, big brother, foresee in the future that a lot of Democrats are going to do like they did in 1964, have no choice but to switch over to being a Republican just to avoid doing something for their black base?
Well, here's the problem. I don't think that's
Yes,
going to
sir.
be the case, though. I think in a lot of cases, people are going to vote for just something different because if your vote is non-effective, if your vote is
Yes, sir.
irrelevant, then your vote is symbolic. If your vote is already
sir.
symbolic, then why should you not just vote symbolically if you're going to vote? So in
Okay.
other words, you'll be making symbolic votes. They're voting for a party, Green Party or whatever. And nobody's going to be concerned about whether or not their vote, quote unquote, wins, because when they did vote for one of the major parties, it didn't change anything.
Yes, sir.
So I think you're going to see more people who are like, okay, if my vote's going to be symbolic, then screw it. Let's just make it all the way symbolic. And you don't need very much to totally cancel out a political party under those circumstances, brother. You only need a 5% change. Usually these elections are won by 1%.
Yes, sir.
Now I'm talking about the state level. It's usually about a swing vote of 1 to 2%. So
Yes.
if 5% of the people are like, well, screw it, my vote's just symbolic. Okay, let's just go all the way symbolic then. Let me just vote for the birthday party in Kanye West. Well, I think you're going to start seeing more of that. There are people who are just like, man, let me just vote however I want to. I don't care how it looks or how ridiculous it is to somebody else because, hell, we're not getting anything any other way. So that's the real big threat they run into. Kamala Harris thought that they were going to win, and that was the most cynical, despicable thing. She thought that they were going to win because of abortion. That they were just going to vote for
Right.
issues. She thought they were going to win just because they voted for issues. So there will be abortion. Well, you've already got abortion. So this is more of that, we're just vote for me so you can get what you already got. That was what she was trying to do. The same thing. You already got abortion. Okay, well, vote for me so you can keep abortion. So we're not going to get anything more. Just vote for something we already got. And that's that bait and switch. They got you voting, vote for your Civil Rights Act. So that's what they do, is get you to vote for things you already got. In other words, for the status quo.
Yes, sir.
And the voters obviously didn't go for that. And
Yes,
going
sir.
forward, that's not really going to be viable. You're dealing with a more sophisticated voter base, and with the Democrats trying to figure out how do we get you to vote for us and do nothing at all, that's where the real battle lines are being drawn.
Yes, sir. I got one last question, and I'm going to land my plane, big brother, so you can get to the other questions. This question is going to be a little controversial, but it has to be asked because I was listening to you, Professor Truth and Tariq. And I could be wrong, but please G-check me at any given moment. God forbid if Kamala Harris would have gotten into office and then we saw what her president, her boss, Joe Biden, was doing for those 4 years, going to the black nations to basically enforce LGBT policy, or they won't get any USA. I think why people turn to Trump, I could be wrong, that God forbid if Kamala would have gotten that office, they would have been this close. They would have been on their way to criminalizing us heterosexual, male or female, if we weren't LGBT, or at least ostracizing us for it. Could that have played a big part in it? Because we saw the way it was going. My plane, right?
The whole point about that was to come up with another issue. They were desperately seeking anything to distract. And I said this back in 2020. They're going to tell you that, oh, we can't do nothing for black folk because we're working on, there's other folk who need things. So we can't just do nothing for just, don't take a look at the Ukrainians and LGBT and illegals. So everything that they
Yes,
could
sir.
think of to say, wait, now there's this other crisis we have to deal with for these other folk over here. So we don't have any resources left for you to deal with your issues because we got to take care of these other folk over here. Don't you understand? We got to take care of that. And so that was the only reason for bringing that up. That was the only reason. It wasn't because they thought there was something they were saving. It's not a big grand strategy, brother. The Democrat Party has become a bunch of feckless losers stalling for time. The strategy of the Democrat Party today is to stall for time. Stalling for time. That's it. That's all. They're not trying to do anything else. Just stall for time. They don't have a better idea, brother. And I said this back in 2016. They're just stalling for time.
I think it's true though that the last greatest Democratic leader they had, unfortunately, was Bill Clinton because he was the moderate. He wasn't too far to the left, neither was he too far to the right. Because, like I was saying to you, I think last week or the week before, the Democrats unfortunately have a Barack Obama legacy problem now. Anything he did is out the door now. Unfortunately.
Yeah, the problem you have here is nobody even remembers the Barack Obama days fondly. Nobody even remembers it. That's the problem. They don't even remember it fondly. So it's not like the Republicans were Reagan. At least they can call back on Reagan with fond memories. You can't even do that with Obama now. And it's his own fault. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We appreciate that. Agnes, if you weren't able to get through last night. She did call up last night, but she wasn't able to get through. So Agnes, if you want to speak tonight, you can just go ahead and give me a call back up on Zoom. Let me go ahead and see if I can get Adrian up here. Let me see if we can get Adrian up here on Zoom. All right, Adrian, and what's on your mind?
So I just got one question. So I was watching Cornel West on one of the new black media outlets, and I'm just kind of confused on how these older blacks are so confused about our native or originality to this land. Even while I was reading James Winthrop book, The White Man's Burden, it talks about free blacks, not just slaves. So why is it that anybody that's older is so indoctrinated that they don't understand our true nature to this land of America? Because he was being taught, and he's trying to run for president, but we can't vote for him because he doesn't even really understand where we're coming from.
Okay, now who is the he you're referring to?
His name is Cornel West.
Oh.
And
Cornel West is a perpetual attention chaser. Bottom line. You all have known I've been on his bumpers since the very beginning. There are some things he says, I suppose, that are otherwise admirable from a humanist perspective, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
But Cornel West is one of these old black academic hippies.
And deal with it, nigga.
And we don't need any more of that. I'm just letting y'all know right now. I can understand a college education. I got one. And I'm just telling y'all, I don't want to hear from any more academics, man. I'm done with the black academic class. I've been done with the black academic class. There might be some revolutionary academics out there somewhere, but we're going to judge you on the revolutionary part, not the academic part. I don't want to hear from... I'm getting to a point right now where I don't want to hear from another nigga with the title doctor in front of their name. Damn! I don't want to hear about another doctor. I don't want to hear about another doctorate. I don't want to hear about your postgraduate. That was cool for Dr. John Henry Clark and Chancellor Williams and Dr. Joseph Ben and Dr. Claudette. That's cool. I see the value of that. But swinging that title around don't carry no weight with me. Swinging that title around doesn't move me. That doesn't impress me. Because I seen what the hell y'all done did. And it's nothing we can really brag on here. So Cornel West is another one of these academics. They go from, his claim to fame is just going from one Ivy League university to another. And now it's being this old hippie type hearing things and my beautiful brothers and sisters, man. Okay, you know, I'm done with it, man. I've been done with it. So for some of you younger folk who haven't checked the pedigree on him, you know, it's just he been doing that talk forever. He does not have a black economic agenda of any kind whatsoever. Cornel West is, at best, you can call him a socialist. Cornel West is one of these black socialists. He is not a black empowerment individual. That's not what he is. I'm not going to bring up who folk laying next to. What? I'm not going to bring that up. I'll say, y'all didn't check the paper. I'm not going to even go into that. I'm just going to leave that alone. Although I am going to say this, I've really worn thin. Let me just say this. Let me even just stop the damn polite tones. I'm dropping the polite tones tonight. Let me just say this straight out, straight, no chaser. I don't really want to hear from a nigga that's laying next to a white woman trying to represent us.
And deal with it, nigga.
Let me just say that right now. If you got a white woman in your bed, you really don't need to be trying to speak for us from some leadership position that you gonna tell the world what we own. Let me just say that straight out. Y'all can go ahead and clip this and whatever. You want to know Jason Black's position? Yeah, if there's a white woman next to you, you can spend the money, you can support us. You cannot lead, and you damn sure don't need to be the spokesperson. If we're going to say that these tethers cannot speak for us, then how the hell are we going to have you speaking for us? If we're going to draw the line, let's draw the whole damn line. And if it offends you, so be it. If it offends you, so be it. But yeah, let me just go ahead and get that out there in the open. You are a world-class buffoon if you sitting up here letting somebody in such a compromised position speak for your interests. They need to back your interests. They don't need to be saying a syllable trying to articulate or lead our interests. Cornel West needs to be a cheerleader on the sideline, sis boom ba, rah rah rah. He doesn't need to be the damn coach. He needs to sit over there in the cheerleading section and back our play, not him coming over here and telling us what the play gonna be. And I meant that, Cornel. I said that and I meant that, because I know it's gonna get back to you. I said that and I meant that. We love brothers and sisters. So if you want to know where I stand on that, that's where I stand. I've never been a supporter of his, but I'm just letting y'all know in 2025, that's where I come. And by the way, I've always been like that. Y'all know full well that's always been my stance, is that, y'all can support it, but you can't lead on this. Let me just go ahead and triple embellish that. You cannot lead. You can't. I've had enough from the academics. I've had enough from the white woman chasers. I've had enough from the interracialists claiming they speak for us. I've had enough. We don't really need none of y'all sitting up here trying to lead nothing. Let me not say we don't need you. You are not legitimate to lead anything. You, by definition, are a follower. You need to just follow. That's what you need to do. Follow, break some bread, contribute, throw something in the till, back our play. That's your spot right there. But don't sit up here and keep circling back and talk to these young folk. And because you're not one of the establishment Democrats or one of the establishment Republicans, you're leading them astray and got them thinking you talking about something different. Cornel West is a communist / socialist. He's one of them cats. But when you start talking about the economics, he ain't got nothing to say. He talks about the poor people. But please understand, when he says poor people, he isn't strictly relegating it to us. He's very clear that when he say poor people, he always makes sure to include our poor white brothers and sisters and our poor Latino brothers, our poor Argentinian brothers, our poor Venezuela, our poor Gazan brothers and sisters. We're at the bottom of the damn barrel. He's in a room full of black folk because white folk won't see him. and telling us about how we got to look out for poor white people. But he's not in a room full of poor white people telling them, we had 100 years taking care of y'all. When we say more jobs in America, we talking about y'all. I proved that last night. For those of you who didn't see the program. If you didn't see the program last night, Adrian, you need to see the damn program. Maybe I'm thinking I want to go expansive into that because I think this is a subject that needs a lot more fleshing out. But when you take a look at where General Motors, and I'm just talking about GM, I'm not even including Ford and Chrysler, when you see where they've closed their automotive plants and where the ones they still got are, and I'm showing y'all, by the way, Hyundai, these are majority white places. So when they talk about more jobs and then they put a big ass car plant in a white neighborhood, in a white city, white neighborhood, 60% whites, 80% white, 90% white, and close the ones in the 80% black places. Oh, we close all them. Anything over 50%, yeah, we close that. Well, I'll be damned. And when you tell me that the main engine plant for General Motors is in Tonawanda, New York, not in Mississippi, not in Kentucky, in New York? Whoa! Somebody must have thought over for a long, hard time about that decision. You got way better places you can go. Why there? And it all starts to add up. So when folk talk about bringing jobs, they talk about the white folk. Okay, we need something specifically for us because all that jobs thing, yeah, that means them. I don't want any of you to get taken in. The Bernie Sanders and all these ass clowns sitting up here giving y'all the flim-flam talk, and I need you all to demand specifics. When you start talking about specifics and the stuff we talking about, them dudes gonna push back on you. Cornel West will tell you that he is all in favor of reparations. Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. I need you all to understand it's very easy to support something if you really don't think it's gonna happen. So he can give you that lip service and say that. When you start talking about specifics, you're going to talk about the poor people in America, you need to talk about black folk at the front of the line. And if you are not openly advocating about us being at the front of the damn line because we're at the bottom of the damn barrel, that's when the rubber meets the road right there, brother. He tells you he's in favor of reparations. All right, so the agenda needs to put us at the front of the line. Well, our white brothers and sisters got to... Okay, here we go. Here we go. I mean, this will disproportionately help black folk here. Free lunches. Okay, there we go. There it is. There it is. If y'all ask him that, if y'all say that, they're eventually going to get around to that and let you know that that's the agenda. I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah, no, you definitely gave a master class and taught me for sure. Cause even how I was reading this book and it was talking about human psychology is based on European and Western ways, and Western just means white. Democratic just means white. And even when it goes to all this deceptive talking, you just gave another code that we gotta follow is, no white women chasers and all this other stuff, just these different codes in the tricky language. So you're definitely giving a master class every broadcast. So I just really appreciate the broadcast, Jason.
Thank you very much for giving us a call here tonight. And like I say, let me just say that just to be straight up about it, this is not about hating on anybody or anything else. You want to talk about delineation, you want to talk about distinguishment, this is something that we got to do, man. Everybody got to show they damn paperwork. Everybody got to show their paperwork, and y'all know what the hell happening from these areas where we have a disproportionate amount of problems. Do I need to go down the line tonight? I might need to just go ahead and walk the line tonight. I'm going to lose a bunch of people. I'm going to lose them. I can see it right now. Damn them. Cookie.
And deal with it, nigga.
Damn. Nigga. Alrighty then.
Intervention. To my light-skinned brothers and sisters.
Damn!
Oh, man. There goes the neighborhood. To all my light-skinned brothers and sisters out there, to all my biracial brothers and sisters out there, you know be going on in your household. You know what happens. You know that little game that gets played. The place of the mulatto bastard in history. You know that little game that gets played. We gonna walk the fence. There's, y'all know full well, is that Candace Owens thing. We need for the light-skinned folk to understand, you know that we have always systemically, historically, perpetually had a disproportionate amount of problems from the folk that when we start talking about white supremacy, they want us to talk about everybody except their mama. They want us to talk about everybody except their white granddaddy. They want us to talk about everybody except that. You want us to give your family members a pass. And it doesn't get to be that way. If I got to lump in the old niggas, regardless of their complexion, then you got to stand 10 toes down on this. So to our biracial brothers and sisters out there, folk gonna have to prove they bones. Folk gonna have to prove they bones, and when we start talking about our interests and you start equivocating, just understand that's the line. That's the line. We didn't start talking about the immigrant class because we down on immigrants, but we noticed there was a particular consistent issue we were having, and then we checked paperwork. I'll be damned. Caribbean, Grenada, Nigeria, Haiti. We started noticing something. It's like, well, hey, your folk just got here 50 years ago. You dancing in carnival. Your people just got here. We're talking about a long-standing historical thing, and your folk just landed. Y'all just got here. Your first descendants in America are still alive. All of ours been dead for centuries. Yo still walking around. Oh, you just got here. No wonder you buck dancing and cooning. To the folks who have an interracial lover. What? Damn! I'm not here to tell you what you doing, what you get down, what you sleep like here. I ain't here to say nothing like that. Some of you, I know you. Some of you been in my films. That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly great. That's perfectly wonderful. I need to go ahead and make something perfectly clear also. Our immortal ancestor, Brother Neely Fuller, he spent his life attempting to articulate these things. When he talked about the compensatory code system concept, he wanted to explain white supremacy in a manner in common layman's terms so that you could understand what it is and what your misconceptions were. And this is why we're able to pull back some of these knowledge and gems today when Brother Neely Fuller told us that the problem with people, unfortunately among black folk in America, the problem with the interracial sexual access is that Negroes get into bed with white people and then they get out of the bed confused. Your white lover gets out of the bed and returns to the world of white supremacy and the dominant society. You get out the bed and tell yourself you're an honorary white person. That's what you tell yourself. Why, I've left black society. Why, take a look at this microcosm that I have here under my roof. I've left my black society. You out the damn bed confused. You talking about you left black society. Meanwhile, your non-black lover is sitting over there like, this nigga crazy. There's nobody else in her society, in his society, that will endorse that you have left blackness. None of them will co-sign your delusional hallucination. You can go date a Chinese female. Go ahead, knock yourself out. Chinatown don't accept you. Chinatown doesn't accept you. You ain't gonna get to bring her up at the AAPI Awards and the two of you standing there and all them Asian men gonna clap for the two of you and talk about Asian interracial love is beautiful. It ain't happening. You don't get to go to the Latin Grammys with your Jennifer Lopez and they all sitting up there clapping and talking about what a beautiful couple y'all make. You don't get to do that. You confused. She might endorse you when you turn off the lights, but her community does not. You can't cross over, dude. Getting her vote of approval is not crossing over. And then you want to come back here and say you speak for us. No, y'all. Folk got to get that cleaned up. Folk, you got people who are obviously compromised. And we're not talking about them getting that cleaned up. So I'm saying this tonight in no uncertain terms and no disrespect to anybody, but if it's areas where we have had particular points of contention and particular problems, these have been long-standing issues. We've been talking about it. And all I'm just saying is, hey, let me just go ahead and say that out in the open. Lest people get confused. We don't need to have any more confusion in that regard. If it offends them, so be it. Let me go ahead and get Khalil up here on Zoom. All right, Khalil, what's on your mind?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. What's on your mind, sir?
Yes, sir. You were speaking on Charleston, South Carolina, man, and when that was straight facts on Charleston, South Carolina. My girlfriend is from Charleston, South Carolina, the West Ashley area, and we're seeing exactly what you're talking about. But my question is, I listen to other podcasts and stuff like that, not going to bring up any names. And one of the things that I noticed from, other podcasts that may be a little Democrat friendly or adjacent to Democrats is they always try to bring up the Wes Moore thing like it's a one size fit all. And my thing is, if hypothetically, if Mandani, who looks like he is going to get in office, if he does get in office, I really think that's going to, affect the Democrats. Like I said, it's going to be a big L for the Democrats. And, my question is, what do you think about if, how is that going to affect the Democrats?
Well, first of all, it's a bad look for them because you're talking about the biggest city in North America. It's America's crown jewel city. And you will have a politician who won with zero support from the party. Let me explain to you why that is tremendously significant. Brother, if he would be like Trump. Trump didn't get support from the fundamental base. He didn't get support from the establishment. Mamdani, the establishment's still backing Cuomo. So if he wins with no support from the establishment, then what power does the establishment have over him when he gets there? How can they tell him about what he couldn't get done without them if he won without them? You see why that forms a fundamental threat. Yep. How do you threaten him when he knows, you can't threaten me, I won without you? What are you going to take from me? You tried to prevent me from getting here in the first place. You ain't got no cards to hold. That's the threat that comes with him. If he makes it and doesn't need their help, that's where it gets bad for them. You can't intimidate him. You can't punish him. You can't cripple him. He's a free agent. He can do as he pleases.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
And all they can really do is hope he fails. I mean, okay, that's a hell of a spot to be in. But other than that, no. Now, if Mamdani wins, I'm just letting y'all know he's going to do everything for the Muslims. What? I mean, that's his constituency. Just in case anybody was wondering, that's his constituency. All that other fluff talk he doing, just I don't know why people can't see this coming. If you're voting for him, it's just because you don't like Democrats. If you're voting for him, it's because you don't like the Democrat establishment. Okay, but please understand, you're handing it over to the hardcore Arabs. That's the constituency he's looking out for.
Yeah.
When you make halal great again. Okay, I'm wondering, has he come up to make Harlem great again? I'm wondering, yeah, has he done that one, folks? Because I haven't seen that video. I've seen the Make Halal Great Again video. I saw that one. I'm still waiting for the Make Harlem Great Again video. I'm still waiting on it. I'm not holding my breath, but I just wanted you all to know that, by the way, if he does get in, that's what's going to happen.
Yeah, and like I said, man, that it seemed like they trying to throw the Westmore, like, let's throw it at the wall, one size fit all. It may stick, it may not, but that's just.
I mean, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, what I mean by that is, if we don't have Josh Shapiro, or we don't have these other people in this, we can just put Westmore there, and then it seemed like it will fix the Democratic vote. That's what it seemed like from my standpoint.
Everybody's trying to figure out how to find the second coming of Barack Obama. That's what they're trying to do. Here's the problem, brother. We've been there and done that.
That's right.
That's the issue. Obama was novel. Nigga, yeah, back in 2006. We've been there and done that. You can't run that play all over again and expect us to be equally enthusiastic or worse, equally naive. We saw what we got. So you can't rerun that playbook. But as I told y'all, and I've just been showing you all, yeah, that's what they're doing. It's not accidental. They saw that was a playbook, and they're trying to figure out how to rerun it. So when you tell me about Westmore, here we go again. Here we go again. They figure, well, he's a little bit darker here, and take a look at his wife and stuff. And then, okay, we ask more questions. It ain't looking good. But, brother, it's just rerun the same damn playbook. They're trying to find the second coming of Obama. They're trying to find somebody who can be an empty enough suit with no dirt on him, ostensibly speaking, and see if we can run him before you figure out that he's as dirty as the others. They're trying to do that one. So that's why they're trying to shove him down your throat quickly before you've had a chance to fully vet him and ask any real questions. But then again, you've already seen enough.
Yeah. Well, shoot, man. Thank you, bro. Thank you for taking my call. Great broadcast on me. I appreciate it, bro.
Thank you for giving us a call tonight. Yeah, like I say, it's the same old playbook, folks. Let me see if we can just run him on through, and before you Negroes have a chance to vet him or to think this over, check through all the paperwork, and hopefully enough of you will not have seen anything that you'll just go ahead and bag him. I don't really know what he's about. I'm not really sure what it is. Okay. Don't worry. We'll get you up to speed. We'll get you up to speed. All right, we got My Life here on Zoom. At least there's supposed to be My Life here on Zoom. I don't know where My Life is exactly, but My Life on Zoom here. Please make sure you have your camera and your microphone turned on for me here, just so we don't have any trolling issues. Don't worry, the internet's not going to see you. But just make sure you don't have any trolling issues. Make sure you have that. I can give you 5 seconds, and then we got to move on. My Life, make sure you have your camera and microphone turned on. I can give you 3 more seconds, and then we have to move on. My Life, make sure you have your camera and your microphone turned on. I can give you 1 more second, then we have to move on. All right, My Life. All right, My Life has left the building. Let's go ahead and see if we can get Selly 44. All right, Selly 44 here. All right, Selly, go ahead and turn your microphone on. He's working on this newfangled technology.
Yes, sir.
All right, Sully, what's on your mind?
Hey, how you doing, Jason? Yeah. So you said the question tonight is, how can Democrat regain the black vote?
What do you think?
You said the question is, how can a Democrat regain the black vote?
Yes, sir. What do you think, sir?
That's a hell of a question. That's going to be very, very hard for them to do. And it's just going to be almost impossible for them to gain back the vote, because like you were saying, they really don't have anything to offer now, with the way that black people have this different view of looking at the world now. And the Democrats really don't have anything to offer. I think if they were to even talk about reparations, they would probably lose a lot of people. I don't think they would be a one issue party, but I think that's what we're looking for. And
well, you know what? If you really want to be an anti-Trump, Think about this for a few moments. If you really want to be an anti-Trump, you don't get there talking about no damn abortion. That's not how you be an anti-Trump. That doesn't work. That's nonsense. You want to be an anti-Trump. Trump came in the White House talking about we're going to do white supremacy. On deck, here we go. You don't fight white supremacy with abortion and diabetes medication and Obamacare. That's not how you fight a white supremacist. You come in the door talking about justice. He's got a problem with that. You don't mobilize your base by telling them, hey, there's a white supremacist coming, protect your abortions. Right. You say there's a white supremacist coming, we're going to have an agenda. He has a white supremacist agenda, we got a black empowerment agenda. That's how you get the black folk to come out. That's what worked for Obama. When they talk about Barack Obama, I was here. I did the programs on it. Barack Obama was talking like me. He was talking straight like the Black Channel. His pastor, Jeremiah Wright. Yep. He had Fox News tied in knots. He had black folks saying, right on. Full-blooded, straight down the line. He was talking straight like us. I'm not talking about kind of like us, not that Cornel West sidewalk sissy kind of like us. Jeremiah Wright was straight down damn white supremacy. Damn racism, damn America. That was him. And black folks said, now that's what we looking for. With the white folk, we don't know if folks gonna support that. Negroes showed up in droves. Negroes showed up in droves across this country. Flip the Carolinas, Michigan, all them places. You want to know where your black vote went? When you decided that we built this damn thing and you gonna pull a bait and switch. That's where it went. But when you were talking like us, that galvanized black folk across this country. Those became battleground states on the strength of promising, talking about black empowerment and speaking in that manner. That's what happened. And if you had a candidate who would make it clear that among other things, that this will be part of the agenda and that they articulate that. Here's the bottom line. I'm not demanding that anybody say these things or address these things the way that I do. That's not their job. A politician's job, however, is to frame the narrative in a manner that is palatable to the general public. That's their job. And don't tell me about something being damn me unpopular. Gay marriage is unpopular even in California. What? Remember Proposition 8? California rejected gay marriage, for all of you don't remember. Los Angeles does not speak for the state. California had a statewide referendum, Prop 8, voted down gay marriage, and the court stepped in and said, damn the voters, gay marriage. So don't tell me a damn thing about what's popular. They make this mess up. Okay, the illegal aliens are damned unpopular. Joe Biden had illegal airlines, bringing them in day and night. Don't tell me a damn thing about what's unpopular. You didn't give a damn about any of that. You never give a damn about what's popular or unpopular till we show up. All of a sudden, oh, that ain't popular enough. I can show all this other mess you're trying to do is not popular. Well, you got plenty of political will to do that. So if you come up here and say, Joe Biden sat there in front of us, dead in our face, black folk, y'all need to get behind Latinos. Get your old senile ass out of here. If you can say that, you bastard, you can stand up now and say, you know what, everybody, all the rest of that mess don't work. This is the trendsetters here. We have on our platform, among other things, we have a solid black agenda. So, okay, here's some for Israel. Here's some for Latinos. Here's a black agenda here. Stop all the squawking. Here's for your little women over here. Damn that. And they don't have to say it exactly the way that I do, just so long as it accomplishes the result. I'm fine with it. I told you all, I said we need to stop saying reparations, not that we need to stop talking about it. Not that we need to stop talking about it. I did not say we need to stop talking about it. But the agenda right now, it's like we're better off if we understand the agenda and don't hold up a flag for it, so long as it supports the points of it. Case in point, take a look at AIPAC. When AIPAC went after Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush, they weren't talking about Israel. The ads that they paid for going after Jamal Bowman and Cori Bush that got them out of office didn't say a word about Israel. And that's all AIPAC cares about is Israel, period. They spend all that money talking about something else. Okay, I'm not the first one to tell you all this. You can get your agenda accomplished without carrying a big ass banner that says that. As a matter of fact, according to the art of war, that's the way you're supposed to do it. We can talk about that amongst ourselves, but when it's time to push the agenda, fine, we can find another word for it. You can find another word for it, another term for it, another execution for it, another arrangement for it. That's fine. But we recognize direct benefits and empowerment when we see it. We recognize that. We also recognize when we don't have it. And the politicians can do that. They can do that right now. We have to get it in our heads. They're against you. These are not mistakes. These are not miscues. They're against you. Bernie Sanders is against a black agenda. Well, of course he would be. Of course he would be. Chuck Schumer and the Congressional Black Caucus, they're against the black agenda. Of course they are. So just recognize it's not accidental. But these folks, for what we want, it would be very easy to push that agenda. And they don't have to get all 5 bullet points. We don't have to get all 5. Well, I told you all about a black hate crime. Folks, I said this here before, if you make a law that it's a felony to falsely accuse somebody of a crime, if you make it a felony to do that, next to the Central Park Karen and everybody, you're going to watch that stop overnight. If you make it mandatory, whether it's a 911 call or anything else, yeah, if it's a false accusation, you got to hold this felony. You start doing that and it stops overnight. What do you know? Nobody's offering to do that. See, black folk don't go around making crazy accusations and falsely accusing people. Yeah, they know who it is who does that. They know who it is who does that one. Yeah, that's why they don't want to have that. They want to reserve the right to be able to do that kind of stuff. But if you had that one right there, there goes your black hate crime bill right there. That's your black hate crime bill right there. You do that one right there. If they make a false accusation, it's like, buddy, we better find proof that you're right, because if we don't, we're coming for you. You better be telling the truth, and we better be able to prove it, because if we're not, we're coming for you. Watch what happens then. It's like, there's going to be a whole bunch of Karens sitting up there, looking at their phones, wishing they could say something. She ain't trying to get the old ass locked up. That right there, brother, you have a black hate crime bill without ever saying the words black hate crime bill. You want to talk about disproportionate impact? Please tell me how Jason Black, who doesn't have a doctorate and doesn't have a law degree, was able to explain that to you all right there. And all these lawyers in the Democrat Party, Jasmine Crockett and Hakeem Jeffries and Chuck Schumer, all these lawyers. These are all lawyers in the Democrat Party, and they've never figured out what I just explained to you. Talking about disproportionate impact, a rising tide lifting all boats. Hey, get that rising tide on false accusations. No, we can't build that boat. We can't get that tide going. So how is it I know this and your lawyers in the Democrat Party who are politicians don't? Of course they do.
Yeah, that was an interesting take, bro. I'm glad you went through it like that right there. I sort of saw it that way too, but I definitely wanted to ask you because I thought that you would come on this angle because you always do. I'm in favor, by the way, and those what you put up earlier about the voting cycles and about all the immigrants that's coming here. I actually see them, and I heard you talking about it last night, talking about Raleigh, talking about Durham. I go through there a lot. I'm there. And like I said, we're about to have a mayor's race here, I think next month. So, we're about to be voting for a mayor. We've had a black mayor down here for years. I mean, almost 12 years. He can just simply get it because if you know anything about Fayetteville, this is a black city. And we've been seeing a lot of those immigrants coming through here. They don't have that kind of power right now because of the way we got it set up. But yeah, I do like the way that you framed that, and I wish that we could because we really don't have a politician really to talk to. I don't know how we actually get that point across to them so that they could probably frame it that way, so that we can get something done. But
they understand, brother. They already know it. Please. The Democrat Party at the very highest levels, they passed around the emails. They've been sniping at us on Twitter. They know who we are. They know the new black media. They know what our concerns are. I spent the first half of this year, the first month of the year in January, talking about all the headlines and articles, specifically speaking about the stuff we talk about. They're still handing around these things today. They're yelling about FBA. They're yelling about B1. They're yelling about black empowerment. They're yelling about voting for the couch. They're outright saying it behind closed doors, and in their memos, they're like, this is a serious headwind and a drag. But it's not a serious headwind and a drag because of what we're saying. It's a serious headwind and a drag because people are listening. If what we were saying wasn't resonating, it wouldn't be a problem. What we're saying is resonating. That's the problem. Right there. That part.
Oh, no doubt. No doubt. I talk to people all the time around here in Fayetteville. It is a big problem with them getting people to move. Actually, our mayor was not going to run this year. He was going to retire. He's already won like 3 times in a row. And he was not going to run, right? And but he ran. The Democratic Party made him run again because they thought that the candidates that they had here, that black people wouldn't come out. So, of course, it's a major problem here. And
I mean, well, now you're describing the gerontocracy. So right. Now you're describing that. So folk like Nina Turner have been talking about that. The Democrat Party, the old heads in the establishment, this is why you got all these damn octogenarians and septuagenarians, and they've been deliberately making sure they keep out any young folk. No new blood, no anything. And that gerontocracy has been a major, major issue too. They want young folk to come out and vote for old people's benefits. And that's what I'm saying. One of the major things here, we don't need to vote for any more benefits for old folk. They got every damn thing. They got the housing. They got prescription drugs. They ain't even trying to get around. When you talk about infrastructure, you're not talking about old people. They're not out here on the roads and dealing with the infrastructure. They're at the house. They go to the doctor's appointment. They go back to the house. It's the young people having to deal with crumbling bridges, crumbling roads, bad jobs. The old folk ain't really working. It's the young people who are having to deal with the lack of performance, and they want young people to come to the polls. And that's why I say y'all need to recognize the damn trick bag language. Brother, if you're 20, 30, 40 years old, what the hell are you voting for diabetes medication for? What the hell are you doing? That's not for you. That's for somebody in their 60s and 70s. That's for them. And they already got every damn thing. They got Medicare, Medicaid, Medi-Cal. They got insurance. They got their pensions back when you could get a pension, which you can't get anymore. They got theirs, but you can't get one. And they're telling you to vote for their pensions. And I'm like, man, your little young ass better get to the polls and vote for something for you. These old bastards out here got theirs with their damn welder shades on. They go driving down the street when they can drive. And Vince McMahon, 80 years old and having a rear-ended somebody in his Bentley. What? I mean, they got you thinking like a young person, but voting like an old person. And telling you that those are your issues. You better wake the hell up. These old folk do not vote for your issues. Old people, they got their houses and they want their housing values to go up because they need to steal money and borrow money against it. Okay, but with the market, that prevents you from being able to get one. They got theirs, damn you if you ain't got nothing. And that's the framing of the arguments. And where the politicians are concerned, it's the same damn thing. When the young folk come in, they're not going to be voting for old ass issues. That's been settled. The old folks still sit there until they get blind in one eye and dead and half crippled and crazy. And still, that's why I showed y'all Al Green from Texas or whatever coming up there with his damn cane. If y'all don't take that cane and bust that nigga over the head, what the hell are you doing? Who does he represent? If you're a person in your 20s or 30s and you think Scrooge McDuck there represents you? Who the hell is he representing? So yes, that gerontocracy where you get these impossibly old people and they're voting for a bunch of issues you ain't even thinking about or heard of. Lower property taxes. Brother, you don't own any property. If you're in Florida and Texas, if you're a millennial voting for no property taxes and you don't even own any property, how is that a benefit to you? And you don't even own any. And where's the roadmap to make sure you get some? So folks better listen to all this trick bag language. And yes, the old politicians sit there to make sure they maintain the status quo. And the new folk got to fight like hell to get up in there. The problem I have with the new folk is they're usually not running against the old. The new folk are running to try to be part of the establishment. What you need are a bunch of anti-establishment people. Because that's what will galvanize the young vote. I'll let you have the last word.
Yeah, that was another great point, bro, by bringing the senior citizens in there and making that contrast for our young people. Bro, I want to say, honestly, those points, and I know people are going to go back and listen to this because, we needed to have that point of view on how to get our issues out there, because just the way that you explained it, and, like you said, they know. And just the last point about our mayor. Our mayor really not old. What happened with him was basically he was going to run for senator, and the Democrats saw what was happening, and they talked him into running for mayor again. He's probably going to win. So
that depends. That depends on how old he is, brother.
He probably he may be 50 if he 50.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
You get my point.
Yeah.
Yeah. And does he represent the millennials? You see what I mean? All right. Because, see, I'm Gen X, but I'm thinking about the millennials and Gen Alpha. And I'm not a person who's really struggling like that, but I'm like, by the way, I see what the hell's happening to these young folk. This ain't no damn joke.
It's not a joke.
I thought it was crazy when the average rent in New York was $2,000 a month. Now it's $5,000. I thought it was insane when it was $2,000 a month. Now it's $5,000. And now I take a look at every major city in America, and there's a place that will charge you $2,000 a month for rent. In every state in this country now. And for the young folk who they just was born and just walking out here, that's the meat grinder they're walking into. And we subsidize Elon Musk to the tune of tens of billions. So make sure he's good. And for you young folk here, well, look here, you can eat walnuts. I got a big problem with that. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We appreciate that. Let me go ahead and see if we can get Blanco up here on Zoom. Let me get Blanco up here. Let me go ahead and see if we can get Blanco up here on Zoom. Wake up, Blanco. Put the jerk down. What? All right, Blanco, what's on your mind?
What's up, Jason? Appreciate it. Yeah, man, it's like how you were saying earlier. The Republicans have these two factions, they're a little civil war, but they both agree that those two factions agree that they have no plans for Black people, right? So it's only the Democrats that are quote unquote losing the Black vote, all that. So at least one of these parties is being honest with their quote unquote constituents and whatnot. The money's still being, stolen out the back door, but at least I guess one of them is being honest about it, that they have no plan for for Black people,
You make a very good point there. In the Republican Party, there's no debate about what to do about us. Damn them niggas. There's no debate over there. In the Democrat Party, they allegedly need the Black vote. We're the backbone of the Democrat Party. And there's a debate going on among them about if they should do anything for us. So at least among the Republicans, there's no debate over there. The Democrats who can't afford it, there's a debate. There's an argument. Well, they're not sure if anything should be done. Matter of fact, they think it's a bad idea. That'd be a bad look. Y'all need to vote for us, but we're not sure if we should do anything. We got real questions whether we should or not. Oh, really? Oh, really? So this is how we got where we are. Okay, well, y'all sit over there being undecided, and we'll sit on the couch, and we're very decided about what to do with you. We're very decided. And here's the thing, I didn't get to get into this before tonight, but the issue is that they're looking at the long-term trends, bro. There's a reason why Roland and the rest of them were talking about that. They're taking a look at their high point was Barack Obama. That was a high point. They've been watching their fortunes diminish ever since. And they know what they're doing wrong. As I said, for the last decade, they're trying to figure out how to get the same support they had under Obama without doing any of those things. And they were hoping that they would have media people and podcasters and maybe somebody will talk the narrative and sell them out and stuff. And it's not happening. When you see where that trend line is going, it's like, dude, it's only going to get worse from here. It's only going to get worse. That's the issue they have. And eventually it will start to erode and deteriorate even your super blue states. If you do not believe that California and New York can flip, you don't know your history. And I'm not talking about ancient history. When was Schwarzenegger governor of California? Ronald Reagan was governor of California before he ran for president. If people do not believe that New York and California can become red states, you're whistling past the graveyard. You just don't, you paid no attention whatsoever. Yeah, it can happen. It sure can.
Gavin Newsom can sweep up the homeless people like that when, Xi Jinping shows up or whatever. And, I'm sure you know about this, but Bruce's Beach just got resold to some developers. It got bought back from the family and then it got resold back to some developers. So, there goes California and Gavin Newsom caring about, Black history.
Well,
right?
that would be interesting. What you're referring to is that they paid the family $20 million and then they basically sold it back to the state. So they gave it to the family and then took it back for $20 million. And then I was just like, okay, well, you better not do a damn thing with it because you're not supposed to be able to do anything with that land at this point. Like I say, if you've never, I don't know if you've been to Manhattan Beach because that's Bruce Beach, but if you've been there, it's at the bottom of that damn hill. So the oyster restaurants and stuff like that at the top of it, El Segundo, that's at the top of the hill, but you got to go all the way down that hill to get down there, and you can see the planes flying overhead landing at LAX. LAX is a very short distance away, so you can't really build anything tall. You can't. I don't know what you would do. First of all, you're on the sand, so I don't know what you would develop. There's a bunch of houses there. There's beachfront houses. So I don't really know what you would develop. I will say one damn thing, whatever it is, I'm calling foul. If they can come in and develop it, why is it the Bruce's family can't do it? Why is it the Bruces couldn't do that? Why is it we couldn't make that? As a matter of fact, you owe that to them. Okay, clear the damn lot. That whatever they need, they got a clear lane to go ahead and do that on the kind of the fact you owe them for a century. So if you can get them out the way and then give it to somebody else, and think about that for a moment there, whoever it was who wanted to buy it and stuff, they should have been required to pay that. The state of California is subsidizing them. The state of California went through all the legal logistics to get the Bruces out of the way, paid $20 million, and now going to hand it over to probably some multimillionaires to try to develop it when they shouldn't be doing that. So this is the government. The white government is still subsidizing white businesses, even against reparations. The white government is subsidizing them. When the black folks should have been, okay, here's going to be the plan, here's what we're going to lay out, and here's what it's going to be. So we'll see if anything becomes of it. I think that's going to be a very challenging thing to try it. I'm not saying it can't happen, because to anybody who's seen it, I don't know. You'd have to build like behind those houses or something, because anything further, you're going to be out by the water, and I don't unless they're going to like tear down a bunch of houses and stuff, or unless there's something I haven't seen or don't know about it, it's very possible.
Well, no, because then technically what you can do is indefinite domain or whatever, so nothing has to be built there, but we own the land. You know what I mean? So
yeah, but how do you capitalize on it though? You own it, but the problem is you still got to pay property tax and stuff. So even with eminent domain, so how do you make a living off of it? How do you make a return on buying it? The only point of buying it would be if you can get a return on it, unless you're going to live on it. So for the folks who live on Bruce's Beach, okay, I mean it's going to be millions of dollars to buy something there. That makes sense if you're going to live there. If you're not actually going to live on the beach, what's the benefit of owning it? So that's the part I don't think I can get over there. So I've seen it and stuff. I'm not going to lie. It would be challenging even for Bruce's family. That would be challenging to develop it, even if you can get permitting for it. That would be challenging. Anybody who's tried to set up a structure near a beachfront knows salt and water, that is very, very corrosive. It's going to be very expensive to be there, regardless. So I would just consider that challenging, but I wouldn't put it past them to try it. They put structures on Florida's beaches every day.
Oh yeah. Just real quick to land the plane. I have a rhetorical question. Like, I don't understand what the problem must have been so badly during Reconstruction that you're watching Black Americans build businesses, become millionaires, put money into the economy, make the economy grow, buy, sell. You have to have such a hatred for Black people that, like, within that 10, 15, 20-year span, like you go out of your way to then start bombing all these, cities and all these neighborhoods just to, cut off your nose just to spite your face. Like, someone please explain, like, besides their hatred for black people, you know what I mean? Like, what?
White supremacy is a religion. White supremacy is a religion. People don't go to church to make money. They go to church to drop off their money because this is what they believe in. Years ago, Sarah Suden said, he once said, when it comes to the afterlife, that's what a person really believes in. Show me what a person believes about the afterlife. This is what he truly in his heart of hearts is committed to and believes as a person, as a being. White supremacy is their religion. Afterlife, kid and caboodle. This is what they get the money for. They get the money to support their religion of white supremacy. Well, Jason, what do you mean by that? The segregationists told you what it meant. They said what it was, and nobody wants to accept it. It really just is that down and dirty. It means that. It means it. What good is it for our fathers to have conquered this land and slaughtered all these people and built this industrialized nation if we're just gonna give it to the niggers? What was all of that for if that's all we're gonna do with it? So the segregationists said they would rather see the American flag trampled under the boots of enemy soldiers than to see it end up in our hands. No matter if we can, our ability to elevate the place has been shown and demonstrated throughout history. And their point is we don't give a damn if America is the C student of the world. It belongs to us. And that is what our energies are focused on. So this is a religion. And the religion is, the money is what props up the religion. They see no point in having a California if it is not white owned, white controlled, white dominated. Then what the hell wasn't that literally the manifest destiny? From Virginia to California, wasn't that literally what it was? Then the religion states that this was our reason for being. This is what they define their existence by. Them up here and their boot on you down there. And that is the perfect, George Orwell told you that. That's the perfect encapsulation of everything. He said, imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. Remember he said that. Imagine a boot stamping on a human face forever. And as far as they're concerned, that's it right there. A white man on the porch and overseers on the horses looking over the good niggers out there, continuing their wealth forever. That's about as close to godhood as you can be by their definition. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We appreciate that. Let me go ahead and see if I can get AT up here. If you all don't believe that it's just that deep and that's just what it is, that's just what it is. Let me go ahead and get AT up here on Zoom. All right, AT.
Jason, excellent broadcast this evening. I hear you talk about the old people a lot, and I always wonder, why aren't they willing to sacrifice to ensure that the younger generation can battle against all the BS that not only did they occur, but the generations before them? Most cultures, the older people usually are willing to sacrifice themselves so that the younger generation can kind of prosper and move forward, but doesn't seem like
the baby boomer generation are the spoiled brats of the World War II generation. What happened was the World War II generation and World War I, antebellum slavery, those are the folk who had to work their asses off, get out the mud, dodge the threats and everything else. They were the ones who had good intentions, not the baby boomers. The baby boomers are parasites. But the World War II generation and greatest generation, they had good intentions. You have to understand, they were in a world at war. People were getting killed by the tens of millions. That literally means that you didn't know anybody who didn't know somebody who was dead or somebody who died. That was what they lived. You and I don't understand what that was like, brother. I'm not talking about the spoiled brats and clowns of the civil rights / baby boomer generation. World War II, brother. You don't know what rationing was. I sat there with my grandparents who washed paper towels. What? For those of you from the deep south, I was one of them people. I watched them washing their paper towels. Not designer paper towels, not cloth paper towels. I watched that. Long after the war was over. I was born long after the war was over. And they were still doing that. You had black folk, especially in the South, had backyard farms. Why do you think that was? Metal, aluminum, and steel. Remember, you had to recycle all that. The government demanded you had to do that for the war effort. You couldn't just waste that stuff. You had to recycle that. And they had food rationing. So beef and corn and stuff, when you went to the store, you had ration cards. You couldn't just go in there like today and just buy as much as you want. It was rationed. We can go down the list. You've never known what that's like. And that was their goal, was to make sure that you never would. So that's a very honorable thing. These people had to go through some very trying, very difficult circumstances and conditions, and their goal became that their children would not have to. Well, their children were the baby boomers. And the baby boomers were the most coddled generation ever, the most selfish generation ever, and they were only concerned about chasing their bestial lusts. So next thing you know, in comes abortion and STDs and conspicuous consumption and all these other things we've been talking about, drugs. They were just lit all the time. So that didn't come from nowhere. They are the spoiled brats of a generation that meant well. And what you learned was you coddled them to death. Now them old bastards are elderly themselves. The World War II generation is gone, and the baby boomers are now the elderly folk, but they are just as selfish and self-centered and narcissistic as they've always been. And one more thing, they expected their parents to pay their way, and now they expect their children to take up where their parents left off. That they just got their lives taken care of them from womb to tomb. And that somebody else is going to be stuck with the bill. Now, their parents got stuck with the bill for them, and now it's time for them to get stuck with the bill for their kids. And they're like, oh, damn that. Y'all kids, here's your bill for me, too. I get to hand out bills coming and going. And that's how you ended up here. And if you talk to them, you got that selfishness to this day. It hasn't gone anywhere to this day. And they do not, I've spent years, they're the only generation y'all came across who said, I got mine, you need to get yours. And they talk like they got theirs, they damn selves, and they didn't.
But that's what I'm talking about. Like, how do we get them out the way aside from
the first thing is socially. You cannot be afraid to make it your culture that you openly speak in favor of your interests and that you are protecting your interests. You cannot be coy and shy about it. They've got you all living like millennials or living like Gen X, but talking like baby boomers and voting like baby boomers. Like you need to hold them up as some paragons of virtue, which they absolutely are not. So first and foremost is beginning the conversation of talking. Which you all say it to yourselves. Because remember, action follows all speech. The reason why they want to control how people speak is because speaking is how you organize action. So if you got folk talking, the action ain't far behind. And that talking has now reached a serious stage. Everybody hears it. You've heard that phrase going around, okay, boomer. And you got more, as more Gen X gets closer to retirement age and sees how these folks have, fleeced the land and everything. My generation is the loudest generation talking, but for the millennials and Gen X, and Gen Y and whatnot, they're going to be speaking even louder when they realize that, by the way, them old bastards ruined the entry door. So you're talking about justice. In a real world of justice, we would have some other mechanism for dealing with it, but we don't. So the first part is we need to talk against it, and then that organizes the society to stop reinforcing it. And then eventually that's what gives way. When the old bastards realize that y'all are serious and your votes are behind it, then the political class and the media follows, and the political class, they're going to try to stop you at first. The media is going to tell you wrong and you stupid. They're going to try that at first, but eventually it's going to come back to that.
Gotcha. And one last thing, and land my plane. What are your predictions about the upcoming midterm elections and how it's going to play out?
More of the same. I think the Democrats are going to make some gains because Trump is messing up so badly, but it's too early to tell just yet. Too early to tell just yet. I don't think it's going to go as rosy for the Democrats as they tell themselves it is, although Trump is the Republicans' worst enemy right now. So if all this machinations he's done and stuff don't have some serious positive benefits and effects within the next 6 months, it starts to look bad for next year because you don't have anything really to brag on at that point. And I'm telling you, the biggest issue for him is the Epstein files. Because that right there just, no matter what else, this just makes you look corrupt. There's no reason for the Epstein files to be classified at all. You all cannot name a criminal defendant whose files are classified. What in the hell's going on? There's no reason for any of that to be classified. Tell me another federal defendant got classified files. There's no reason for that. So that just makes you look very corrupt.
You're right. They want to go after MLK, the Black Panthers, everything unclassified. Jeffrey Epstein is being protected. That makes sense.
Yeah, and you can't convince people that they should keep supporting you when you're starting to look like a tin pot dictator, complete with open corruption. It's just, eventually you get to a point where you're just so open and so blatant in your face that people can't ignore it anymore. If you're going to do your dirt small. Do your dirt small. When you start making it real, just overt, it becomes impossible to ignore you. Thank you very much for giving us a call tonight. We appreciate that. Let me go ahead and see if we can get Sir up here on Zoom. Let me get Sir up here. All right, Sir, what's on your mind?
Hey, thanks for taking my call, Mr. Black. Hey, question. Wanted to get your viewpoint on something. I saw the interview with Newsom and Charlie Kirk. And I mean, Charlie Kirk just bodied Newsom, man. It was like Newsom was his student. And it was like he was being scolded. And I was just kind of wondering, from a strategy standpoint, what you thought. Since they're always trying to force the Black and brown agenda, what if the Black grassroots presented some interchangeable things that was needed for both sides to say, top three, we need this, and it worked for Black and for brown. And I'm thinking that would do one of two things. Either the brown community would say, embrace it and say, yeah, we want that. Or they would reject it and say, no, this is what we want. And then they would be forced to have to comply to both the Black and the brown community. I'm just curious to see what you thought.
No.
Okay.
Because that's confusing.
Okay.
The biggest issue you have, brother, furthermore, we don't even have to do that.
Okay.
Because take a look at what Trump's doing right now. He brought white Afrikaners over here and stuff. Trump is showing you he can bring a racial agenda straight up the middle. Mm-hmm. Simply because he got the brass to do it. That's it. Okay. We're bringing a racial agenda straight up the damn middle. If you all want tax cuts and this, that, and the other, you got to take this white supremacist agenda too. So that was what he did. He brought an economic agenda, but then, okay, but we got this white supremacist thing on here too. So that was how he did that. The Democrats could do the exact same damn thing. If the Democrats wanted to really turn things around and win, I already said what they need to be. If you want to spend big from the government, okay, you can do that. You don't want California in charge of it because they're abject failures. But after World War II, the federal government was the one that financed all the housing building in America. So all the big housing bills that we had and all that housing inventory we had, that was backed by the federal government. They're the ones who made all that happen. And that's how you would need to deal with that today. If millennials saw that and Gen Alpha saw that you were serious about that, and the government gets behind that, that's going to bring housing values that you make it government policy to bring housing values down. It will be government policy to bring the cost of housing down. Okay, but do you see where the problem there is? All the old niggas.
Right.
What you mean you gonna bring housing prices down? Why, I've been sitting on my big fat lazy ass all these years and took out these HELOC loans so I could go splurging on some 20-year-olds on OnlyFans. All them old married people who are on OnlyFans. And yeah, when you say that, what you mean bringing down housing prices? Well, guess we want housing to be more affordable because I control. My values is fine. You're not paying a mortgage. I got mine. They need to get theirs. And so if the Democrats were serious, that right there alone, your youth vote doesn't walk away from Trump. It runs. It flies away because you're telling them that there's going to be something specifically that benefits them. Stop the illegal aliens. Build more housing. That's a direct benefit to young people. So now they can get in on it. Professor Scott Galloway, yes, who New York Times talking about from L2, he was talking about the natural ebbs and flows of the economic cycle. But that's also a good thing, he said, because what happens is that whenever you have a stock market correction, for example, he said that's when it brings the opportunity for young people who don't have as much money to buy in. If the stock prices are all $100,000 a share, young people can't get nothing. But when you have these corrections, when government does something there, that opens up an opportunity for young people to get in. And now they can buy Apple stock at $50 a share. And then it goes back up to 200 again. So that's valuable. But when you do what the government's been doing now for the last 5-10 years, where you prop up the stock market because you never want it to go down, and you prop up the real estate market to keep the prices as high as possible so the bankers can cash out and the developers, Lennar and DR Horton, can cash out and the old folks can cash out and the prices can never be allowed to go down, then the next generation gets screwed in the process. The Democrats know this, but then again, most of them are old folks who are benefiting from it too, and they represent the banks and the developers when you talk about those special interest groups. So they represent them. But brother, none of this is a mystery. None of it. And furthermore, you can tell them, yes, we need to do something here for black folk. They have no problem telling you what they're going to do for trans, half or 1% of the damn population. They have no problem shoving that down your throat, whether you want to talk about it or not. They have no problem putting that in your face and telling you this way we need to go. Okay, get your ass over there and say with these black folk, this way we need to go. And when them folk come up to you, whatever you say for the trans folk, you tell them that for this. You are very loud and very bold and very proud when it comes for one half of 1% of the population. You need to get buck wild proud when we sit up here and talk about this. Yes, we need to do this for them. Yo, absolutely. Folk ain't happy about it. You talk about it the same way you do with the trans folk. You proud and bold about that. Time to get super proud and super bold over here. That's the way that works, bro.
Gotcha. Okay. And I was kind of like,
the other issue though, brother, is that you can't allow what you were talking about. I understand you're trying to think strategically, and I get that. That's always good. You can't do that because here's the problem. Whenever you say black and, it always gets focused on whatever comes after the and. Gotcha. That's why you can't say, well, can we do this for black and? They're like, oh, good. He done adopted our language. See, I told y'all if we wait them niggas out, they'll wear down. And now you've brought the and back in, and now you'll never get the black, which is what's been going on the whole time. They've been promising us black and everybody. Oh, this is going to lift everybody. This will make it more palatable. That's exactly what they've been saying. Oh, we can talk about everybody. This will make it more palatable. And then when they start enacting policies, the black gets dropped off, and it's everybody else. Everything that comes after that and.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, like, they send these think tanks, and then they come up with all this outlandish stuff. The black community needs this, and the black community never asked for that, and this and that. So it's like to publish something of what the black community needs, you can't dispel and just come up with your own crap when you see this publication right here, which is what These are tangibles that are needed. And if you're not speaking
Brother,
to that,
but Kamala Harris did that, remember? In the waning days of her campaign, talking to D.L. Hughley and all these, she was saying that. She understood that. As black people, we need to have our own damn door at the SBA and our own damn door at Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They know what it is. Dude, I'm not a lawyer. I'm telling you, Elon Musk is the richest man in the damn world because he became an adjunct to the federal damn government. The building out of the charging stations that made his damn thing viable, that's our tax dollars that did that. To the tune of billions. The federal EV tax credit. It's not an EV tax credit. It's a Tesla. It's an Elon tax credit. On account of the fact he was the only game in town. Now, they know this. They knew this for the damn last decade. They put him in the federal damn pipeline. Okay, well, if that was legit, they already know. You know what? You could rectify black society if you did the same damn thing over here. Brother, they already know. Here's the issue. Blessed ancestor Dr. Francis Cress Wilson said that white people play dumb about racism and black folk play dumb along with them. White folk play dumb and we play dumb along with them. If you want a black agenda, you cannot be afraid to say the word black. That does not mean you got to walk in with your Black Panther leather jacket and your beret on your head and the black glove and the fist. That doesn't mean you have to do that. If you're going to discuss a black agenda, you cannot be afraid to say the word black. We have to normalize that. Can't have people scared of that. You cannot be afraid to say that. They're not afraid to say trans and all the rest of that stuff. But when it comes to stuff, all of a sudden you're scared to say it. Yeah, but we allow them to get away with being scared. We allow them to do that. When it was time to stop Asian hate, nobody was afraid to say Asian.
True that.
Stop Jewish hate, nobody's afraid to say Jewish. We show up, don't say black. Whisper that. Get the hell out of here.
Right. No, I get it. Well, I appreciate your viewpoint on that. Just wanted to get your viewpoint.
Thank you very much for giving us a call. Yeah, like I say, y'all, we don't want a situation here. You need to say it straight down the middle. We have to stand up for that and don't be afraid to say black. It doesn't mean you have to sit up here and go over the top about it, but you cannot be afraid to say black to let them know when they want our vote, they're not afraid to say black. What? Hey, folks, when they want our vote, nobody is shy about saying black when they want our vote. Everybody is proud to say black when they want our vote. But when we talk about what they need to deliver, all of a sudden can't say black. And them old niggas of the civil rights generation, that was okay as long as they got a photo op. They were fine with that. Our generation sense are different. We're not playing that game anymore, and this is why their numbers are dropping, and this is why they're worried. But please do not deceive yourself into thinking that they don't understand, they don't get it. Well, Jason, if you were just sitting there in front of them, you could explain it to them. If they've heard it already, they know. They already know every damn word I'm saying. They're doing it for other people. But they want to show you their level of disrespect and how long they can get away with it. And the sooner we shut that down and show them that their support collapses, the better. But do not deceive yourself into thinking that they are somehow deceived. That's a delusion that you would give to yourself if you believe they're somehow deceived. They are not deceived. It's not that they don't know. They get it. They know. And they always have. We're going to go ahead and wrap things up here tonight. I want to thank everyone who has contributed to support tonight's program on PayPal, Super Chat, Venmo. Shout out here to my man V Vinny.
I told you all that I was the greatest of all time. I told you today I'm still the greatest of all time.
My man V Vinny. Ain't seen you in a minute here. Thank you very much, brother. We appreciate that in the Super Chat. To my man Tom Slick, Fear to None. Lorenzo Carson, Black to Death. Appreciate that here. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the Haven of Intelligent Black Thought. We do this every weekend, holidays, some days in between. Click that red subscribe button. Click that yellow notification bell. Join us each and every time that we're here. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, check out our groundbreaking best-selling documentary work, blackchannelfilms.com. That is blackchannelfilms.com. I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in to tonight's program, live or recorded. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of The Black Channel. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, The Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, black is the future, and the future is uncompromising.